All right, it's 1 minute after 6 o'clock here, so we'll call to order the June 7th, 2022 Dalton Township Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order, and we'll begin with a roll call. I am here. Marvin Nash is excused as indicated earlier. David? Here. Nola? Here. And Scott? Here. All right. Next would be a review of the agenda. If everybody's had a chance to review that agenda, any proposed changes or modifications, additions? Otherwise, I think we'll accept that at the call of the chair and move on to approval of the minutes. If everybody has had an opportunity to review the April 18th, 2022 meeting minutes.
I'd like to make that motion to approve those minutes.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Board? All right, any comments, concerns, questions regarding the motion or the minutes? No. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next will then be the resolutions for ZBA 22-01, 02, and 03. If everybody's had an opportunity to look at those.
I didn't see anything on those that needs to be changed.
All right, I'm going to treat that as a motion and support from the two of you to approve those resolutions. Any?
Motion, Scott?
Yep.
Scott motion, okay.
No, David,
David.
and then Scott seconded.
Ah.
Good.
We went from I support that and I agree. So I think we're close enough there.
Okay, that'll work.
Any other comments or questions regarding the resolution? Otherwise, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right, those resolutions also pass. Next would be the purpose of our meeting here today, which is items for public hearing, ZBA 22-04, the address being 2642 Johnston Road. This is a request by Brian Wolfus, who I believe is present.
Brian is not here. I'm the homeowner.
Okay.
Brian's our architect. He could not make it.
Okay.
Can I approach or just?
If you want to stand right there, I think we've got a mic there, and then it's easier to get picked up and everything else. So, and then the board will just note that this is a dimensional variance request, essentially from the front yard setback due to the lake, etc. There is, as I'm sure all of you saw, pretty good pictures and drawing, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
Then if you'd like to just state your name and address for the record, and then just explain to us what your proposal is.
Yeah, William Rink, 2642 Johnson Avenue. And the only thing, I guess the proper terminology would be a variance from the relief. It's just a triangular section to be added to the deck so that it's square. We did some calculations, it's roughly 49 square feet. One thing I thought that might be beneficial, it's not included, it's simply a picture that I took. If you would like to see this. But basically the entire, square deck is going to be contained over these rocks right here. Where if we had to follow the relief from the lake from this corner, it would just be an angular deck going back that way, which I guess in everyone's estimation would look, I hate to say silly, but we just wanted it squared off and every bit of it's being contained in the existing rock field that we have there.
Do you feel that would be approximately a 45-degree line, essentially from the corner?
I guess it's easier to see from. I think it is. It appears to be
roughly, yeah.
Roughly 45 degrees, relative to the square of the lot there. But that's just the water line runs there, so that's really what set that.
Would you just take a second to describe where you are on the lake versus, are you in a corner, an inside corner, or the regular?
Well, We're on the south corner, but there's kind of a lobe to the lake, and when it goes around the corner at the end of Johnson, we're kind of like right in the middle of that flat section, looking north towards the island on Twin Lake,
Mhm.
so.
So you have an irregular or angular shaped shoreline.
Yeah, the shoreline does cut on an angle.
Sometimes on the drawings, you know, I suspected that.
Yeah, and what Brian cited was, he says usually they want, 60 feet of relief from the high water mark, and we've got, the current deck that goes down is only roughly 50 feet anyways. And the high water line, as we're describing it, is, we have a retaining wall out there. So, to hold that 49 feet, like I said, it would just have that angle that kind of cuts diagonally across, the rock bed that we have there.
Mhm.
We prefer to have it just square to the house, but it's all contained within that rock bed.
Have you had any comments from any of the neighbors or anything on blocking of field of vision?
No, nothing whatsoever. And we didn't even wanna go to the left side of our property. We have a neighbor that's very close on that side, because I think at one time they were conjoined lots that split at one point. But if we put the deck over on the other side, which would be really, it would be right on top of them, so we don't want to extend any more in that direction to what's already there.
And plus on the east side of his deck, they have a shed that obstructs
Yeah,
their view.
Yeah, that
basically,
shows
so-
up in the picture. There's a
Yeah.
big shed just across from our property line right there.
And that looks to be about the edge of, that was pretty even with the projection as to where the new deck would come out. That looks at least roughly, it would be almost even with that, so it's not like you're going in front of that. That's
No.
all.
Yeah, you can see the deck, or the shed.
Any other questions? Seems a little more straightforward than some of our previous ones, which was why I worried what Stephen has coming next, but we'll go from there, so. Okay, we're all set, you're welcome to sit down, we may still have some questions for you, you're not on the hot seat,
Okay.
it's just warm now, how is that, so. All right, and before the board deliberates, I don't believe we have anybody in the audience who wishes to speak. I believe we have your chauffeur,
Yeah.
but other than that, but I'll certainly open it for public comment briefly. There being no invisible people rushing up to the podium, we'll close public comment and then turn to the board for any questions, thoughts related to this. I unfortunately was not able to get out to the property with a few things going on, but I'll be having these pictures, because I looked at these and they were pretty well done
I was out
explaining
there,
everything.
I was out there and he walked me through the process of what his intentions were, and it's gonna add good value to their property, and it just makes sense for them to be able to do that. The rocks are already there, so what's the difference if the rocks are there as opposed to, hey, somewhere we can actually stand on without tipping over,
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I know the rocks are considered differently under zoning law,
Yeah.
but structurally, they're all there, and you still have the retaining area
Right,
and that sort of thing, so.
okay.
Any other thoughts, or should we run through our factors here, or?
Yeah, the only thing, we just had passed that to go with a generic 60-foot setback.
Yep.
And that's the thing, we should really keep that in mind. In this case, that's the thing I went out there with, saying, does it infer any hardship on any neighbor? Because it's gonna be this could be our bellwether, where everybody says, well, you did it here.
Mhm.
Right.
So we just need to be prepared for, that could be something to consider, but like I said, in this case, you're replacing where there's an existing, the rocks are not a structure,
The
but
rocks
that
are
is something
there.
that is already there, so you're just building on top of it.
Exactly, exactly.
So to me, that's where I went out there kind of with I wanted to see proof, like that I wasn't gonna be just saying, well, yes, because we like to say yes, but, it does make sense in
It does, yeah.
the way the thing looks, but again, that 60 foot, I kept going out there going, how are you gonna stay within that, with the water being the way it is? Certainly now, the water's much lower, you're well within the 60 foot from that, or beyond the 60 foot, that's just as, you get high water again.
And it is, and we can address this, but it's a unique structure based on the angle of the lake. There's
Right,
plenty on this side of the property.
Yes,
right,
yes.
And
right.
it's just right here, but this is also where we already have coverage.
Mm-hmm,
So I think forcing that to be on the other side, ignoring the neighbor issue, is still, well, we've already got that there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yep.
It's not quite a replacement, but it's close.
Yes, it's not going to go, we're not putting something up where it is taking something up and you're going out that much farther. That's
Right.
where you start worrying
Right.
about the peeking out from one,
right.
and then we start creating the issues there, so that makes sense.
Mhm.
And, with the shed there, I mean, arguably that is, because I'm gonna assume this is continuing
It is.
a little bit this way, and the
Yes.
shed's closer yet
Yeah.
Yes.
to this. And where arguably that structure is a sightline limit, et cetera, where a deck is not
Exactly.
for that, which is part of the purposes of our setback
Mhm.
requirements. So you're comfortable with this could
Yeah,
be
I
an
am,
exception to that
Yes.
general?
It is for the right reasons, we're not just giving a blind.
That's correct.
Yeah,
I think your definition is, the way I saw it too, is that you have an average. If you were to average it, you'd probably be well within it on one side and over it on the other, so you have to kind of take that as a factor. And to me, that's where I went in, I didn't have my wheel with me to take it out there and walk it from the water and what have you, and it was a beautiful day, but I thought,
Yeah,
I'm just gonna make the notation, and that's what I was seeing, if there was an average on there or something to say, because you could see the one edge appeared to be well within,
Mhm.
so we're just talking about that edge of the street.
But I certainly agree with your point as we look at these, and I feel after planning and the board revised some of these lake guidelines, I think we're gonna need really strong reasoning here beyond,
Mhm.
they just haven't gotten to doing it yet, which was the reasons we occasionally grant on some of these,
right.
of saying, why shouldn't this fall in with that newly developed lake district?
Exactly.
Which we didn't have before, and we need to take advantage of.
And it's already non-conforming to start, and that's where, and it's an approved non-conforming, which that is even easier to make a decision on. And we're not with something that's a problem, becoming a bigger problem.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would feel much differently about this if we were talking about an addition of the house structure all the way out to this
I agree.
line.
Much different.
And frankly, if we get a lot of high water and for some reason it goes up the wall, we're dealing with a deck.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
that's still elevated, not a structure,
Right.
so to speak, so.
I think they would like to have the opportunity to worry about the water coming up that far.
Yeah.
We'll
Right.
do it a couple years, couple years difference, so. Okay, would conformance to the current requirements of the ordinance involve practical difficulties for this property owner? Any thoughts on that requirement? Kind of addressed those already a little bit, but, I mean, arguably we could force this deck structure to be on the other side. I think that's a practical difficulty, however, to do that, because there's already structure. And arguably, we're having even more coverage by forcing that, because this might not get removed.
Right.
Right.
The 75-degree through the deck would be, to me, would be another one of those, you would not want to see that. It makes maybe for a flow from the lakeside, when you're looking as you're driving by on a boat, going, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting on it or owning it, you would not go, boy, that's
Yeah.
exactly how I would draw it up.
Well, and this is a little bit extreme, but I do worry anytime you have a deck that's not square or rectangular, that it's a safety issue sometimes, because
Yeah.
people are expecting,
Mhm.
I'm expecting
Yeah.
a square or a
A square
box,
up, yep.
not a sudden drop or Okay. What about, and I think we probably hit this a little bit, but special circumstances which exist, which are peculiar to this land, structure, or buildings.
Angle of the lake.
Angle of the lake, where the house currently is. I mean, certainly we're not gonna ask the house to be moved back.
Right.
I don't know where we'd move to, you'd be in the
House couldn't-
roadway,
yeah,
right
exactly.
away
House
there.
couldn't go back.
Take off a little bit here and add a little, and
Yeah.
it's not specific to this parcel, but certainly I think it's important to note that the shed next to it
Mhm.
is in the same line,
Yes.
which is a little bit unique, so. Okay, would conformance of the current requirements deprive the applicant of property rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district?
I think with that shed being there, they get to enjoy something that's closer to the water without it being
Yep.
an impact on anything, so I think we'd be okay with.
Yeah, and I bet if we started wheeling everything, there's not many that hit that 60-foot. Even though it was important to get,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
establish a line, that had to be
Right.
done,
Yeah.
but although without lower water, maybe a few more than.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And that is the Eagle side of things, whatever that acronym is for, they set 60 feet, that's what we want with that. So our 60 feet is based on a recommendation of higher power, which for us, we always
Yep.
like to give them their due and do that, but for us, we have to manage it at an individual case level. I think at this point, this makes a lot of sense.
It
Yeah.
does.
Or, frankly, we're struggling with what we used to always struggle with the lakes, is we have a lot of very small parcels with people who went from tiny little cabins, cottages to something more.
Bigger
And
homes.
that's been tricky and continues to be challenging sometimes to balance that out. Okay, would granting the variance request create substantial detriment to any other lands and uses that are commonly enjoyed by everyone else, or contrary to the spirit and purpose of the ordinance?
I cannot see where it would create substantial detriment.
Well, go back to the sheds, go back to
Right, right.
the unique shape of the lake. Certainly another lot with a squared off shoreline.
Right,
Might be different.
yeah.
I don't think our chances of moving the shoreline is gonna ever happen, so we can't do that for them.
No.
Can't change the shape of the lake.
That might
It's
upset a few
moving, it's
people.
moving every day though.
Oh, yeah.
That might upset a few people with less lake.
Yeah.
Increased frontage, less
Yeah.
lake. So, okay, I think then we went through our checklist. If anybody has any other questions or anybody would like to propose a motion.
Okay, is this the resolution right here? All right, I make a motion for ZBA resolution 2204 for the dimensional variance of 20 foot from the required front yard setback for attached deck at 2642 Johnston Road. Go through.
Per the attached
Per the attached
specifications
specifications
and dimensions.
and dimensions. There we go.
And I will support.
All right.
We have a motion that has been supported. Any questions regarding the motion? Otherwise, I think we'll just do a quick roll call, which we typically do on these. Scott?
Yes.
Nola?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So therefore, the variance request is granted. And we will wrap up that particular portion. So you are all set.
Thank you for
You're
hearing
certainly
me.
welcome to stick around or
If you want my picture, you can have it, otherwise if you.
just put it in the
Yeah, I'll
file.
take it to the file.
Okay.
Yep, so we've got that, so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any communications? I didn't see any communications in the packet. Any old business that any of the board members would like to bring up? Or Stephen, certainly if you've got any old business you need to tell us, or new business.
I don't have any.
Shh.
Wow.
I feel like the alien came and just, replaced you with somebody, we don't have any.
The last couple times, everyone just piled on, once I got a single one, before I could schedule anything, people just got wind that there was a variance
Oh.
meeting coming up, and
This board appreciates having one relatively routine.
Yeah.
And not having
Yes.
anything where we have to go through the other things, the enforcement side of things.
Yeah.
This was welcome.
yes. And I like it from a preparation perspective as well. It's easier to put it together.
All right. Also note, there still are no additional public,
comments?
just a phone retrieval, all right?
Yes.
All right, then if there's nothing further from anybody, I think we'll adjourn at
Motion to adjourn.
6:20, yes.
6:20.
Done, deal.
Wow.
Uh,
The county board has started to do some of those adjournments.